This video is brought to you by the Ridge wallet. Guys, this incredible wallet, it's light, sleek, and industrial. Plus, it doesn't fold and awkwardly bulge out of your back pocket. It goes into your front pocket. It will seriously change your pocket game. If you moved on from the flip phone, don't you think it's time to let that 90s style wallet that your dad used to carry behind? Ridge wallets hold to 12 cards, plus all the cash that you need. You can choose from over 30 colors and styles, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. It is the best wallet you can buy, and you don't just have to take my word for it, because there's over 30,000 five-star reviews. I was skeptical at first, but once you try it, you'll never go back to your old wallet. And there's no pressure. Test it out for 45 days. If you don't love it, send it back, get a full refund. When you decide to keep it, there's a lifetime warranty. Click the link in the description. That's going to get you 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns. Go to ridge.com/Chael. That's ridge.com/Chael. Use the promo code Chael for 10% off today. Guys, how does Jake Paul get out of this fight? I mean, in all fairness, Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley Part 2 has the same problem that Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley Part 1 had, which is there's nothing on the line. And those guys found a way. They were desperate. They were desperate to find a way to make it interesting. Look, Vince McMahon used to do this. When a match was about nothing, he'd make it a hair match. Do you guys remember those? There's absolutely no reason for you two to go wrestle, which means there's no reason for the audience to pay their money or give up their time to come see. So Vince would make it a hair match. Whoever loses gets his head shaved bald. Donald Trump and Vince McMahon did this. Oh, by the way, sold out an arena and called it WrestleMania. I mean, a hair mat, you put something on it. Okay, I have a reason. I don't need it to be any more polished than that. I just need it to exist. So Paul and Woodley did a fantastic job making this about the tattoo. That's huge. If we will all tune into what we're doing to watch a hair match where we know it can grow back in 2 months and be like it never happened, but for this one moment of embarrassment, we can put that on a poster. I mean, think about what a tattoo match does. Those guys did a great job. But that's how desperate they were nonetheless. This was purely a cash grab, make people tune in and watch. And no matter how serious Jake Paul is taking it, and he is, he wants to be a boxer, he wants to work hard, he wants to be a famous boxer, but he also wants to be recognized for being good at it. No matter how bad he wants those things to be true, the sport of boxing has a way of identifying who that distinction goes to in the form of a belt, of which was not on the line. So what do? They do a tattoo match. Great, but Jake has now agreed to do it a second time. Make sure you follow this. Because no matter what, Jake has to want something. There has to be hope to exist. It's not a fun life, that of a boxer. It is not fun to get up before the sun, no matter what the weather is, and go put those miles in on the road. It's not. Then go in the afternoon, put gloves on with a bunch of other people with like-minded dreams that are going to punch and kick, right? It's not fun. But it can still be necessary, and it can still be something that somebody has a drive to do. I've got to guess what Jake's is. If it's not belt-related, if it's not boxing legacy related, what is the drive? And there could be a number of things. Attention. Maybe he loves those press conferences. Maybe he loves walking into an arena full of people. Maybe he just loves to try to punch a target that's also trying to punch at him. He would be one of the few people, but he might, and I can live with it. It's his answer. I can live with whatever it is, but I'm trying to guess what it is nonetheless. So, if it is attention related, if it is a cash grab, you'd want to hear what people have to say before you agree to the fight. One of the great joys of being Jake Paul and having people begging to fight you and doing the absolute best they can in this negotiation. Nobody has said Jake Paul's name without attempting to negotiate in some kind of fashion, whether it's to negotiate for his attention, whether it's to get on the docket to get the check of the B-side, whether it's to be a main event, whether it's to be in a full-up arena. Anybody that calls out or speaks of Jake Paul is doing their way and their level to get on the radar to be opposite of him. And one of the great joys that you get if you're him is shooing that person away. To take somebody who does have notoriety, may even have some belts, may be recognized within the community, and is going to be remembered forever because of it, and telling them no. making them beg, making them negotiate, making them come to the table and say, I would like something that you have, and then telling that person no. There's very few joys that Jake Paul is ever going to get within this space bigger than that one. The people that are telling him he doesn't belong and then try to get attached to him. The people saying, I can beat you, you're not any good, just give me the opportunity, while they're on their knees begging. Very few things will bring Jake any more joy than to tell that person no. It's also what a great troll does, and he's a great troll within the media. So what Jake would have done in any other circumstance, including this very moment, if he was not high on adrenaline and in front of a live camera with a hot mic in his hand, he absolutely would not have accepted the fight against anybody. He'd have waited for the Canelo Alvarez's and the Triple G's and the Tyson Fury and the Mike Tyson. He'd have waited, right, I realize I'm stretching here, but he would have waited for people within the industry to attach themselves to him and come calling out, as opposed to being the one asking something of someone else, in this case T. Wood, who, by the way, he just beat. There is no scenario where Paul would have played this the way that Paul played this, aside from being high on excitement from the adrenaline. Okay, how does he get out of it? How does he get out of it? Does he go and form a fight in the meanwhile, while T. Wood hasn't yet to get the tattoo? Does he say that the tattoo is not big enough, that it was not spelled correctly, that it was not what they agreed upon after Tyron has it tattooed on his body? Imagine that one. Imagine Tyron comes out with the tattoo and Jake says you misspelled something, that wasn't our agreement. I mean, right, but you're dealing with a troll here. Imagine how much fun Jake could have, but what does he do now that he said yes? He's going to lose a lot of the momentum. A lot of the momentum is the Twitter sphere, is social media going out and begging for this chance that ultimately he looks down upon his throne and turns down everybody except one, who he chooses. What do we do now that he is already chosen? Like, where do we go from here? Nowhere. This was a mistake. This was a tremendous mistake by Jake that was made in the heat of the moment. But it was captured. It was documented. We have an agreement. He said the word deal. You guys ever been to the tables? You ever been to the tables in Vegas? You put your chips down, right? If you haven't been to the tables, I'll explain how it works. You put your chips down. You get that. You've seen that on TV. If you don't have the time to put your chips down and you call it out, you don't have anything. You have nothing. I'll bet $1 million on green. You have nothing. If the pit boss looks up to you and says the word bet, you have a bet. Now, whether you got into your pocket and ever set those chips down or not doesn't matter. You aren't leaving the casino until you fork over the money, or he's going to bring you a bag full of cash. But if the word bet is said, it's a deal. It is a deal. Nobody follows house rules. Nobody is more a man of their word than a bettor. In all fairness, that's all that he's got, and it goes two ways. And if you say it, you've got to do it. I bring that to you because Paul is not going to try to weasel out of this. Paul's not a weasel. You can dislike him all you want, and and it comes from a point of jealousy. In fairness, he's done a lot of things right, and he's done a lot of things that show hard work. But if you're still of the mind that you want to try to put him down out of jealousy, go ahead. He's not a weasel. He's got to go have to fight T. Wood again. And all of you people that didn't want to see it the first time are now going to have to go and see it a second time, apparently, unless he can find a way out, which I can't even begin to imagine what that would be. It would make more sense for Team Paul to call T. Wood on the sly and go, dude, we need out of this. I will bring you $1 million if you publicly say you don't want the fight. I will go make $5 million with my next opponent. I have this deal with you. Let me off the hook. I don't publicly want to look like I welched on something. That would make more fiscal sense than going in and doing this fight again. So I'm only asking, how does he get out of it? How is he stuck? How is he making a deal with T. Wood after the deal was already done? T. Wood had to get the tattoo. They already agreed on it based on the outcome of the fight that had just concluded that went in Paul's favor. So Paul now says, I'll give you a contract if you go and get a tattoo. They were already going to do it. He's jammed up. He's stuck. Will a simple explanation do? It's going to have to do for you. You're the ones that get to decide. This isn't just between Paul and T. Wood. Paul has now put his name on it. So all of you are then going to get to decide. Is it enough for him to come out and say, I spoke in the heat of the moment. I already did this fight with him. He does not have to get the tattoo. I am not going to do the rematch. Or he has to get the tattoo, but we already agreed on that, and I'm not going to do the rematch. I'm asking you. I'm not telling you what he should say. I don't have the foggiest idea. I think that it's very clear. He has to go and do a rematch, right? But he's hit a jam. It will not get him one step closer to anything. That fight was about nothing, at least on paper. In theory, it represented a lot. T. Wood won a world championship using his hands, so now we are in there with a very legitimate striker. T. Wood is a two-time Division I All-American, so we know you're in there with a real athlete. T. Wood was not removed from competition, and if you want to bring in how long it's been since he won a fight, that isn't near as irrelevant as to how long has it been since he had a fight. It wasn't that long. T. Wood checked a lot of boxes. T. Wood was a lot smaller. They manipulated the rules down to 8 rounds, but that's a positive. None of us want to watch you do it for 12 rounds. You or anybody else. It's not just a knock to Paul. We don't want to watch anybody do it. And then you can't help but watch the fight. What we've now learned with the Paul brothers, Logan beating Floyd under the rules that they agreed on. Logan gives Floyd his first loss ever. And Jake beating a former world champion in T. Wood. There's no way to watch and have the evidence that we now have and not at least play the game, the rhetorical game of what would have happened in Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather had they done it the right way, which would have been 8 rounds. Jake and Logan Paul were smart enough to step forward without suffering any embarrassment and say, we're brand new to this. We're willing to do it. We're willing to put our reputations on the line. We're willing to make sure you get a great big check. You're going to meet me partway here, which is we're only going to go for 8 rounds. If you can prove the better of us in 8 rounds, we'll go ahead and concede that you could do it in 10, and we will admit full-heartedly you're likely to do it in 12. That is a lifetime of work. We don't have that. We'll bring a lot to the table. We're not bringing that kind of a risk. They were smart to do that. They have gotten pushback from a grand total of 0 people. In fact, not only is nobody pushing back on the 8 rounds, you have people that are much more with my voice that are saying, please change all of boxing to 8 rounds. So if you do put yourself in a realistic scenario and you ask yourself, Conor McGregor, who was an amateur per record, none, 0, never had a pro card before, in against Floyd, who had done it 50 times successfully, and you put it under today's parameters, which is 8 rounds. It's a very different fight. It's very different, even if you don't change the strategy of Floyd, if you don't change the strategy of Conor, if we just go and watch those 8 rounds, not with the people of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, with 3 reputable judges, and we just bring in Conor versus Floyd, we stop it after 8 rounds, and we have 3 reputable judges judge that fight, it would be a very fascinating conclusion, right? Where do we get and what do we get from doing that? Nothing. We get something to talk about, but that's all I'm doing with you right now. I'm talking to you about something. And Conor versus Floyd is vastly different in 8 rounds, not to mention, you look at what the Paul brothers did, right? Conor should have come in and had that kind of clout. Conor should have had that kind of confidence in himself. Conor should have known that he can change an entire sport and make somebody dance to his tune. He didn't know it. If he would have known it, he would have done it. As powerful as Conor was, it never crossed my mind to do either. I never even thought to come in and change the rules or change the rounds, but now we see not only can it be done, it can be done successfully. The media eats it up, the commissions will go for it, the judges got no problems, and the athletes themselves aren't going to push back. If Conor McGregor would have fought Floyd Mayweather for a scheduled 8 rounds, what would have happened? What would have happened? And have 2 conversations with this. One, what would have been different? Because initially you would come forward, you'd have the Floyd supporters coming forward and say, well, Floyd would have changed and he would have put his foot down on the gas pedal. But now we know that that's not true because Floyd didn't do that against Paul when it was for 8 rounds. So we're now more reasonably of the school of thought that Floyd would have fought the exact same way. The one problem that Conor had is he got fatigued. So we also have reason to believe Conor would have fought the exact same way. So now we have reason to at least ask the question, if you have 3 judges, not Nevada, 3 reputable judges brought in to watch Conor versus Floyd score the fight but stop after 8, you would have I think you'd have a fascinating discovery. I mean, I think that's pay-per-view. I think that's television worthy right now. You're not going to sell a live gate. I think you could do that right now. I think as a piece of content, you could host that fight. You'd mic up the judges. You would have them explain after rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, how they scored it. And if that were to be the new result, I would go as far as to tell you Conor won that fight. I thought Conor was kicking Floyd's ass when it happened. I understand that it was stopped in the 10th round. I understand that was the right stoppage. I understand that Floyd won it. No foul ball. TKO, exactly the way it should have been. I just maintained for you that's not the way the scorecards would have read. And hindsight being 20/20, like anything else, I think that Conor underwielded and underestimated the power that Conor had at that time. That fight still would have happened. Those hundreds of millions still would have been generated. Floyd still would have showed up. We now have evidence of that. It was something that had never crossed anybody's mind, including McGregor. So what if McGregor was armed with the evidence and information he has now and could go back, fight Floyd, fight him for 8 rounds, have reputable judges in a reputable jurisdiction? History might be very different.